Hello, Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja, and we got a great Ask a Ninja question today. And basically, it's talking about air sealing and how cold everything's been with drafts and different things like that. Now that it's wintertime, it's the middle of November. Some of you have already gotten snow and different things like that. But down here in the South, it's also been a little chilly. So we got a great question from Michael in Alabama, so stay tuned. Okay, so Michael in Silver Hill, Alabama says, I have a crawl space under my old 1920s home that is 3 feet high and all the vents are closed to the crawl space. What I am having issues with is when my central heat unit turns on, I can feel the cold air from the crawl space coming up from the crawl space through the floor. The subfloor is a 1x6 board, so like probably a tongue and groove system, and I have carpet on top of that. What I think is happening is the air is coming up between the 1x6 boards through the carpet. What is the best way to stop or insulate that problem? Well, Michael, great question. And first of all, I just want to talk about a couple things. Number one is, do you have insulation on the walls? It sounds like you've closed the vents. I don't know if you're running a dehumidifier or controlling humidity or anything like that, but let's go through this a couple of different ways, because you've got to think of your house as a whole, not just about the crawl space. So let's talk about a couple things. So the first thing I want to look at is, are you controlling humidity? All right, because if you don't control humidity and you start to get condensation from your ductwork, as you can see right here, we've got a ductwork that is inside the crawl space. Obviously, this is a tongue and groove system. It may or may not be as wide of gaps as what you have, but it sounds like you've got a subfloor and a carpet directly on top of that. Most homes will have a subfloor and then another floor on top, or some kind of flooring on top, and then either the finished carpet or the hardwood or whatever. So if you've got a tongue and groove that's got some major gaps, and the only thing between those gaps and the crawl space is your carpeting, then you're going to have a lot of drafting. So, but first of all, first and foremost, before you do anything, make sure you're controlling humidity and making the crawl space not a hotbed for mold. Okay, so look at that first. All right. Secondly, you want to check the foundation walls. It didn't say in your question that you were insulated or air sealed in any way on the foundation walls. These are some of the penetrations that you're going to want to make sure you go around all of the inside of the foundation walls and check. If you have any type of plumbing going through your cinder block or your brick or whatever, or you've got these man-made holes here, 4-inch PVC, so that the plumbers and the HVAC can run their mechanicals through there. You want to make sure you seal these up, because again, you're creating drafting from the crawl space. If your door is not sealed that's going into the crawl space, also rim joist insulation. Here's another hole that you want to make sure you get fixed. As you can see, that this is probably the condensate line from the heating and air unit going through. As I mentioned a minute ago, you also want to make sure that you take care of the rim joist insulation. So this, you can see the rim joists are actually condensating and creating a moisture problem and a mold problem. This is a great article from buildingscience.com. If you go to buildingscience.com and type in rim joist insulation, you can see some of what they're talking about. But they're wanting you to create an air barrier, because if air from this crawl space or basement is going up here, then it's traveling up the walls. I know you're mainly concerned about the subfloor, but you want to make sure you control air up in this area too. Here's a spray foam rim joist insulation, another spray foam, and another spray foam. We like the foam board rim joist insulation, so you can get that pre-cut foam board rim joist insulation on our DIY store along with our spray foam kits, and you can put the foam board in the rim joist and then spray around it. The reason why we're not a big fan of spray foam insulation only is because if you ever have to remove it, it's very difficult to remove. It's great as far as an insulator goes. It's just a little harder to work with, a lot more messy than a single can. As you can see, he's using a 2-component spray foam here in order to do that. And there is a little bit of finesse when using these 2-component spray foams. If you're not spraying fast enough, the nozzle can get clogged. So anyway, there's a lot more to learn with doing 2-component spray foams than there is a single can component spray foam with a pre-cut foam board that you can use. The other thing you want to make sure of, believe it or not, your attic can cause your crawl space and your basement to draft more. This is a great do-it-yourself guide by the Energy Star people, and this shows a lot of the drafts in the attic, knee walls and chases and the attic hatches and all that. Look at this. You've got an exhaust line going from the HVAC system or your plumbing, all your hot water heater, all the way up to and through the house. And look at that draft. It begins down here and goes all the way up. So these are some of the things, even though you're only maybe thinking about insulating the subfloor, these are some of those other areas where if you air seal the attic itself, it could also, it's like putting a cap on top of a 2-liter bottle of soda. When you put that cap on, it holds the carbonation better, and that's kind of what air sealing the attic is going to do as well. All right. So the last thing that you want to consider, and you can see here on our Crawl Space Ninja site, we've got a plumbing line going out, and we've spray foamed it. We've air sealed the vents. It sounds like you've already got all that. We've also got the insulation attached to the foam board, but before we attach that foam board insulation, if there was any penetrations behind this insulation in the crawl space, we would seal that. So I'm not a huge fan of spray foaming subfloors. I'll just be honest with you. I feel like if you encapsulate the crawl space and address all of the air problems around the foundation and put foam board up, that heating and air unit is probably leaking some air, and it can make the crawl space warmer, probably about the same temperature as the home itself. So just a little thought there. Now, if you don't have heating and air inside the crawl space, remember, most HVAC ducts leak 25%, which is why we do duct sealing. But running a dehumidifier is also going to help keep it warm. It does give off heat. But if you find yourself with a very cold crawl space, then you may need to do some air sealing of the tongue and groove. I'm not a big fan of a complete coverage of the tongue and groove with spray foam. All right. But what you could do, it'd be a lot of tedious work, but you could either use a spray foam along those larger joints and then make sure you got all these plumbing penetrations and things like that air sealed. And then maybe put a fiberglass up there. We have also done some foam board sealing underneath sunrooms and porches. So that way you would cut large pieces of foam board that would fit in this area, and then you would air seal around the edges of the foam board. So that way, you know, fiberglass isn't a good air sealer. So this way you could do large areas of the tongue and groove. And then if, God forbid, you ever get a leak from above, which is why I don't like spray foaming subfloor, if you ever get a leak from above, you should be able to pull that foam board off and address that situation. So that is my biggest reason for not liking spray foaming subfloors. In your situation, though, Michael, you may think that's a valid way to insulate, but just keep in mind, if you don't spray foam all the way down to the floor here, all of this wood can transfer cold or hot energy from the crawl space up into the subfloor. But if you're just looking to control drafts, I would certainly start with the rim joist insulation, the outer foundation walls, and maybe get up in the attic before I started spray foaming subfloor. So anyway, that is just my recommendation. I would do the spray foam of the subfloor as the last option. So my name is Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. Hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.